Hey everybody, and welcome to episode number 25 of the Kickabout with me, Chris, and as always, Dan and Fran are here.
Hi.
So this is episode 25 part 2, really, because as anybody who watches our socials will know, there was a bit of a technical glitch on Monday, and despite recording a fantastic show, as always, the recording did not record, and as such, we lost the entire show, and here we are, hopefully re-recording a replacement show. But obviously the good news is we've had a whole bunch of Premier League football midweek, so we got fresh stuff to talk about, and we can also cast a little eye over the weekend and the weekend's action if we get a moment. So to start things off, obviously we're not going to do a transfer window roundup now because the transfer window has closed, and it kind of feels like old news really. The only transfer I just wanted to touch on, Dan, was the Josh King one.
Yeah.
And like how we feel about a permanent move, but only on a 6-month contract, because that's very unheard of for a player anyway.
I find it very weird. I assumed it was a loan. But yeah, for a permanent signing on a 6-month contract, surely that means they don't really have much confidence in him.
I'm trying to work out who the beneficiary is from that deal. If Everton had a real striker crisis, I could sort of understand that, if they weren't sure about Josh King, but potentially he was all that was available. It's a deal that works for all parties, and in the summer they get the choice. But they're not, in a striker crisis. They've still got Calvert-Lewin, they've still got Richarlison. I just find it quite an odd deal. Sometimes you have managers coming in on short-term contracts. In fairness, I'm not sure whether there's an option for Josh King in his contract. That Everton can exercise their right to extend the contract by another year or whatever.
There's a 1.5 year extension they can do.
Right. Okay. So I guess that goes back to your point then, Dan. Is this a real show or lack of confidence in Josh King to only do this?
Well, I rate him. I think he's a good player, and I was surprised that he went to Everton. I thought, because they've got Calvert-Lewin, and Calvert-Lewin's been a bit up and down since the start of the season, but I don't think he's getting in ahead of Calvert-Lewin in terms of the striker position. I don't know if they want to play him out wide, maybe.
He can operate as a winger. He has done that at times in the past for Bournemouth. But I just find it interesting. With managers, obviously, when they're on long-term contracts, 4 or 5 years, it inevitably means that when they get sacked, the club has to pay out a huge amount of money. But players very rarely get sacked unless they've, made a big screw up in their personal lives, or they've done something very bad on the pitch, or have a falling out with the manager, whatever it may be. But generally speaking, a player is not sacked, and therefore no compensation is allowed. So the protection for the club is to put them on long contracts, and then it protects their investment so that they can potentially sell them and recoup their money. So yeah, it's an odd one, but we'll just have to keep an eye on how it pans out for the rest of this season and beyond. Moving on, before we get into the bulk of the show, I did also want to touch on the story about Emma Hayes, the Chelsea women's boss. Now, again, we talked about this. We're probably going to be saying this a lot. We talked about this on Monday, on Monday's failed recording. And at the time, it was just a link. There was no real concrete kind of evidence or proof that this was a genuine chance of a woman becoming a manager of a men's professional football team in England for the first time. But since Monday, obviously there has been some further stuff that's come out, and basically Emma Hayes has clarified her stance by claiming that AFC Wimbledon can't afford her. So what do we think of this whole situation? And also not just that particular comment, but her statement as a whole.
I think it would have been good for women's football, women managers, sorry, if she had taken the job. But I can also see, she doesn't want to be taken for a charity case, which I kind of admire, to be fair.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think that she probably sees this for what it is, in the, the amount of media scrutiny that's around it, it's bordering on becoming a PR stunt. And I'm sure it wouldn't be to her or to Wimbledon if they were to give her the job. But to a lot of people, it's an experiment, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I mean, the flip side to that argument is that, you know, she is Chelsea women's boss. The Chelsea women's team, whilst I don't watch a huge amount of the WSL, they are on an incredible run right now. I think they're like 33 games unbeaten. They've won 3 titles, 2 FA Cups in like 8 years. She's doing a really, really good job there. So she's well within her rights to turn around and say, do you know what, from what I'm doing with this club right now, I do feel like going to a struggling League One team will be a step down. But on the flip side, do we really think that a woman manager, or the first woman manager to manage in the English men's game, do we think they're really likely to get a Premier League or a Championship job? I'm not so sure.
No, I don't think they would ever be offered that, to be honest. I think League One is, I don't know, it's tough because I think going from, it's hard to compare it. I mean, how do you compare Chelsea women's team, you know, to a men's football team? And obviously Wimbledon see themselves on the same level as Chelsea women's team. Well, I guess if not higher, because they think that they could have got her to leave Chelsea. So it's quite interesting.
I mean, this might be, you know, a real compliment to Emma Hayes, the AFC Wimbledon, of, you know, with all the managerial candidates out there that I'm sure they've got access to, that they have looked at Emma Hayes and thought, you know what, she could come in and save us and push us forward, because no club brings a manager in because they don't believe that they can take the club forward. So AFC Wimbledon clearly think that Emma Hayes is a manager that can come in and push the club forward. So there is a compliment in there. But of course, I don't believe I've actually heard that Wimbledon have confirmed or denied the fact that they approached Emma Hayes or anything like that. So this could still be a lot of media talk in this, but it looks like we are going to have to wait a little while longer before we see a woman managing a English men's professional team. So let's move on to the show then. And as always, we start with this. Down the stat, man.
Right. So, I mean, I had to go for this game. Obviously, it was the United-Southampton game.
Obviously,
yeah. After United's 9-0 demolition of Southampton on Tuesday, Bruno Fernandes now has 15 assists in 36 Premier League games. Only 2 players have got to 15 assists in fewer games. Who are they?
Whoa, I like that. Okay, we'll have a little guess at that later. That can be a nice little warm up for the second final in the quiz later, which I know everyone is tuning in for. But we'll pick that up later on. So let's get into the bulk of the show. Let's start in that very game, because we now have conclusive proof that lightning does indeed strike twice. Manchester United 9, Southampton 0. I mean, it was an incredible night. It really was, and it all started with 79 seconds worth of action having been played before Alex Jankovic. I mean, there's no other way of saying it. He absolutely clattered McTominay. I mean, what on earth was he thinking here?
It was a horrible challenge. I mean, it was up. It was it was above his knee. It was on his thigh.
Was it a necessary challenge?
No, I mean, the only thing...
No,
and it was a 50-50 ball. I mean, the ball was in the middle of both of them. McTominay got there. But even if the ball... even if McTominay hadn't got there first, his foot is still up almost high. Like, you don't go in studs first at waist height.
And it was on the halfway line, so it's not like he's even trying to block a shot or, get there and try and score a goal, whatever it may be. He's on the halfway line in the opening minute and a half, and he's, going in for a challenge like that. I mean, I don't think he's solely responsible for what happened after that, because a little bit like the Leicester game, the defending at time was absent at times from Southampton. And we won't talk about every goal because, frankly, we don't have time tonight. But there were a few contentious moments in the game. So let's start with the first red card. Paul Merson, who was covering the game for Sky, said he thought, "Oh wow, that's 4 red cards in one go there." Now, obviously, there's no complaints there, but do we think, how much of an impact does that have on the rest of the team, bearing in mind, he's a 19-year-old, he's coming in for his debut. Do you think that's a real deflating moment for the rest of the team as well?
I think he's just tried to, it's his first Premier League, it's his Premier League debut. I think he's tried to get stuck in, tried to make an impact and trying to impress his manager.
But he's literally stuck himself.
Yeah, unfortunately, he's just... he's gone a bit of a bull in a china shop, and because I can't remember if I read or I heard that his agent has been sort of murmuring that he's trying to get him a move away because he wasn't playing any games. And I'm sure Ralph Hasenhüttl will push him out the door now.
I was going to say, I heard UFC are probably on the phone if he doesn't get a career in football. Yeah, I mean, the second red card was far more contentious, and obviously by this point the game was well and truly over, but it sort of was a little bit of a precursor to the final couple of goals. What are our thoughts on this Martial penalty and the subsequent red card for Bednarek?
I mean, at the time, I've seen it so many times now, and I'm still very 50-50. I kind of do think it's a pen because obviously I know he's pulled out at the last minute, but Martial's expecting the contact, and it's hard to tell if there is much contact. And then at the same time, Bednarek comes off saying that Martial even said it wasn't a foul. So, I mean, if that's true, then you've got to take both their words for it and assume that it wasn't a penalty.
Yeah, I mean, it took an awful long time to get to this decision as well, because Mike Dean obviously originally gave the penalty. VAR, from what I understand, I don't think Mike Dean was going to do any action on the player. VAR then intervened and told Mike Dean to go and have a look at the monitor, which he did, and spent some considerable time watching that, which is another issue in itself. But for me, I look at the way that's happened, and apparently there's this rule which I've overheard the commentators on BT Sport saying. They have the ex-referee in as an analyst, where they go to him to talk about like contentious decisions and stuff. Yeah. And apparently it's down to whether he's made an attempt to play the ball or not. And if he hasn't made an attempt, therefore it's a red card. And I just don't understand that at all, because he's genuinely trying to get out of the way to not foul him. How can that be worse as a red card offence than somebody flying in for a challenge, trying to get the ball and missing him and potentially injuring the player?
Yeah, because they were saying that if Bednarek had just clattered Martial, just swung a boot at him, it would have been a yellow card because he's made an attempted challenge. But the fact that he hasn't made a challenge, he's pulled out of it, and he's stopped a goal scoring opportunity, therefore it's a red card. It's a really strange decision. It's a bit of a loophole type thing.
Yeah, I mean, I was having a chat with a friend on WhatsApp afterwards, and we just sort of like talking about VAR as a whole and how the rules in football just are not capable of utilising VAR properly, and they often end up conflicting with each other. And then the other talking point from the game was actually earlier on in the game. I think the scoreline at this point was 4-0. And Mike Dean gives a penalty for a challenge on Cavani. There's no question about whether it's a foul or not. And then VAR turns around and says, no, it's a free kick. And I look at the replay on this, and I'm seeing the initial contact on the foot while Cavani's foot is quite clearly on the line. And as far as I know, if your foot's on the line when you're fouled, it's a penalty. So unless I missed something, that should have been a penalty, shouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I was adamant it was a penalty, and even the commentators and like you say, the sort of referee that they have, he said it would be a penalty because his foot's on the line, and I'm not really sure. Like, I don't know why they've not given it. I mean, I find it a weird rule anyway. Even though it's on the line, I feel like it should just be a free kick on the line. I don't understand why it therefore moves forwards a little bit to become a penalty. That one's strange to me. But at the end of the day, if you're going to be a stickler for the rules, then you've got to stick to every rule.
Yeah, and I'm with you. I mean, the ball in that play, over the goal line or not, it has to be the entire ball over the line. So why is it that the rule is the other way around for when it's committing a foul on the edge of the box? It sort of doesn't make sense to me. But it is worth stating at least that this red card for Bednarek has been overturned, which means that he is available to face Newcastle this week. So does that mean that, based on the rules as they are, if they believe that there's been contact made and he hasn't made a contact to play the ball, and therefore by the rules that's a red card, so what are they saying by overturning that rule? Because does that mean that they think it wasn't a foul? Do they think that their own rules don't make sense, so they've just used common sense and said, actually, no, you can play?
I think what they'll say that it was a penalty, but it wasn't a red card. I think that's how they'll get out of it. I don't think they'll say that it was neither a penalty nor a red card.
I don't disagree with the decision to turn it over at all. I'm just wondering whether, if the rule states that if they haven't made a challenge for the ball, and that's the reason there was a red card, when he quite clearly hasn't made a challenge for the ball. So why are we rescinding the red card? If we're being a stickler for the rules and that rule says that, then yeah, it doesn't make sense to me that they've overturned it.
No, I agree.
So, but anyway, I mean, Hassan Hutel has said after the game that in his own mind, this game was worse than the original 9-0 because of the way it kind of the way it happened, in that it was only 5-0 with 20 minutes to go and they conceded 4 in the last 20 minutes. Or sorry, was it 5 in the last? It was 5 in the last 20 minutes, wasn't it? Sorry, it was 4-0 at 70 minutes. And he even said that, as that sort of 5th and 6th goal went in, even he begun to think about that 9-0 at home to Leicester. And I just wonder how much that crept into the players' minds as well.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think is that at least the fans weren't there. Although at that point, there probably wouldn't have been many fans left anyway. But
they would have gone.
There would have been plenty of Man United fans still there to make sure they remember it.
Yeah.
But it's shocking, really, because I think that since the 9-0 happened against Leicester, Southampton have obviously had an extraordinary turnaround of fortunes where they had a really good end to last season. Up until fairly recently, they'd had a really strong season so far. I know they've had a bit of a blip recently. And we were just getting to the point where the people don't refer back to that 9. Obviously, people remember it, but they don't refer back to it as a recent game that, that is a... but it's not a discussion point anymore because it's been and gone and Southampton are quite clearly over it. But now this has happened. I mean, how long are we going to be talking about this one now?
But a lot of their players are out, aren't they?
It's worth saying they do have injuries. I think they had one maybe or 2 suspensions, so they were very much under strength. But I've said this before.
Fine at all, but
no.
They didn't have their top squad out.
But I guess that 9-0, they've still got professional football players on the pitch. They shouldn't be getting 9-0. I appreciate that they were down to 9 men by the end, but yeah, I just fear for Southampton that this is, people like Pete obviously is absolutely loving life, and I'm sure he's enjoying this discussion as well, being a Portsmouth fan. But I do kind of feel for Southampton and their fans, because now they're reminded of this again, and they know that this is going to be sort of thrown in their face for a long time to come.
I mean, it's a massive scoreline, isn't it? And to have it twice in sort of 1 year, 2 years within 2 seasons of each other is quite something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure I saw this stat that said that there's only been 3 occasions when 9 goals have been scored by one team in a game, and it's happened against Southampton 2 of those 3 times.
And it was for United twice.
Yes, because it was against Ipswich, wasn't it? Was it 9-1 against Ipswich? Yeah, all those years ago. So, yeah, it's not a stat that Southampton will be particularly proud of. But let's talk about Man United then. We obviously, as a result of the way the fixtures fell and Monday's failed recording, we've kind of missed discussing 2 quite disappointing results, in particular the loss to Sheffield United just over a week or so ago, but also the result at the weekend against Arsenal for different reasons. But a performance like this, regardless of the circumstances, should still be something that United are extremely pleased about and really need to build upon.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. I just want another run of form. I don't want to be sort of up and down, and I think that's what he's got to do. If we can get a result against Everton, I can't remember who the game is after that. I think it's like Newcastle or something. But if we can just keep picking up form, because at the end of the day, I don't think, as nice as it would be to win the title, I think top 4 is still our main aim, and I'll be very happy if we can finish top 4.
Yeah. So you got Everton next. And then West Brom is your next Premier League game, but obviously the kickabout derby next Tuesday. How you feeling ahead of that one?
Well, both teams are in pretty good form at the moment.
They've got Jay Lings now, so
he won't be able to play, I don't think.
Oh
no, I should imagine there's a clause that says he can't play.
That's nice.
But
I'm sure he would absolutely love to play against us.
I would fucking love that.
So I just wanted to also talk about Solskjaer for a second. I know we've talked about him a lot over this season, and I don't want to be that person that changes their mind on somebody every 5 minutes, but I do think it's important to keep an open mind when there's new evidence or new things happening. And the more and more I watch this, and I've not really given this too much thought over the past, is that I think he's really bad. I really do. And I think his good players have been bailing him out for a long time. And just from a tactical point of view, I just don't think he's any good.
Yeah, and I'd completely agree. I mean, I say to you every week that he sends his players out with the same tactic every game, makes the same substitutions every game at the same time every game. Only thing I would say that against Southampton, he did actually have the initiative to take. I can't remember who he brought off, but he brought two players. It was Cavani and Rashford, I believe. He brought off at half time to save them for the Everton game, which I thought was good. But I mean, we were 4-0 up against Southampton and they had a red card. So that's the only reason, obviously, he's done that. If it had been a tight game, he would have waited till the 85th minute to change it. But
yeah, I mean, the best managers of this world, the Guardiolas, the Klopps, Mourinho's, the David Moyes, they make changes when they see issues, right? So tweaks to formations when they see things happening, substitutions, sometimes really early ones. I mean, we've seen some managers, I know Mourinho's done it on several occasions, who will make a change like 30 or 40 minutes into the first half for tactical reasons. And I just don't see Solskjaer ever doing that. I don't know if it's lack of tactical awareness, lack of cojones, for want of a better expression. I just don't see him doing that.
No, yeah, like you said, I don't know if it's tactical awareness. He just doesn't quite have it, or if he's, he doesn't want to upset anybody by bringing them off. But that's the thing. He doesn't, no matter how the game's going, he doesn't change anything. He just sort of sits there and hopes for the best. That's what it seems like. And I never you see Klopp, you see Mourinho, you see Guardiola, they're stood on the touchline like the full 90 minutes and they're animated the full 90 minutes. I hardly ever see Solskjaer on the touchline. He's always sat in his chair watching like a spectator.
Yeah, I mean, I genuinely don't know how United are going to finish the season. I mean, if can they sustain a title push, or whether they will kind of fade away and end up scraping into the top four or finishing there comfortably. But in my head, I don't see that Ollie is that man to take them forward to being the kind of the Manchester United that kind of everyone expects them to be. I know that's silly because they've not been that side for a long, long time now. But I guess that the board does deserve some credit for sticking with him. We've seen examples, Lampard being the obvious one where the managers with lack of experience aren't given enough time to kind of really get things right. And in fairness to Solskjaer, he does seem to have a very happy camp there at the moment. But it just it feels like there's a step needed to take Manchester United just to that little next level. It's not a big step because obviously the players are definitely there. The confidence is there at the moment, so it's not a huge step. But I just don't think he's capable of it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I would say in Solskjaer's favour, I don't think there's a single player in that team that dislikes him or doesn't want to play for him. I think every player goes out there, wanting to play for Solskjaer.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I don't think we'll win a title under Solskjaer. But as long as I see improvement every season, that is the main thing. If we start to, fall out of the Champions League places and start to go back down to Europa League, 5th, 6th, then I think his time is up. If we finished 3rd last season, if we can finish 2nd this season, I'll be happy. If we finish 3rd again, I'll be happy.
For me, I mean, the biggest change that I'd like to see from Solskjaer is that approach to the games when he comes up against the big teams. I want to see him try and take take a more positive approach to those games and get on the front foot, go at these teams, and especially teams like Arsenal. I know we talked about it on Monday, but for me, Arsenal are not a team that you need to go and sit back against. They're not that good anymore. Yes, they've got players that can hurt you, but so is every team in this division.
Other than the FA Cup game where we won 3-2, we've only scored 1 goal against the big 6 teams this season.
So yeah, it is. I think, and in a lot of those games, you look at the Man City game, you look at the Chelsea game, the Arsenal game, the first game against Liverpool. The opposition teams have all adopted less positive tactical setups as you might have thought they would. And again, I just feel like, Solskjaer, if he'd have read that situation and thought, these boys have come here also to do the same thing and try and not concede. Let's go and have a go.
Last season we beat City, and it was like 3 times because the way we play, it absolutely matched like how City play in terms of, they come at us and attack, we sit back and we counter. And as soon as Guardiola sort of got his head around it, he can now counteract it because he's that good of a manager. But the problem is Solskjaer then can't think, oh, okay, they've figured us out. We need to try something different. I mean, the way I see it, he's like, well, it worked before. We just got to keep trying it. But it's just not like that.
Yeah. But anyway, let's move on. Let's move on to Liverpool against Brighton, and I guess more examples of this crazy season that we're having. You know, we talked on Monday about how Liverpool have had these two massive results in London against Spurs and West Ham. They won both of them 3-1. Looked pretty impressive in both of those games, and everyone's kind of saying, you know, they've weathered the storm, they're back in the hunt, and then they followed up a home defeat against Burnley with a very limp performance and a defeat to Brighton.
Yeah, and that's 2 home defeats in a row after going. I don't even
like 60.
168, I think.
It was something ridiculous, wasn't it?
No, I think it was 68 Premier League home games.
Oh, 60.
And I think, the record, I think, was Chelsea at about 84, 85, something like that.
To then lose to Burnley and then Brighton.
Yeah.
Weird.
I mean, you know, if they got beat at home by, you know, City, Chelsea, you know, you could sort of say fair enough. But to get beaten by those two teams, there's got to be a bit of a kick in the teeth when you've had a run that's been going on for that long. But I mean, overall, what do we make of this Liverpool side? I mean, the game itself, Liverpool were very abject in. Are injuries finally kind of catching up with them a little bit?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
No, I don't think it's easy to keep saying and blaming it on the injuries. I mean, yes, obviously that plays a massive part, but I feel like Liverpool have got more than enough players to get by without the likes of Gomez and Van Dijk. Because other than those two, have they really got any other major injuries?
I mean, the problem is they've had players in and out of the side, which I think hasn't helped because historically they've had a very settled side. And settled sides do tend to perform better than teams that are being chopped and changed every week, unless you're, you know, a team with the amount of depth that, say, Man City have. But I sort of do agree with you on that because, you know, they've had Mane, Firmino, and Salah for the vast bulk of this season. I know Mane's had 1 or 2 injuries here and there. I know he's currently injured at the moment. You know, they've had good periods of time where they've had Fabinho in the side. They've got Henderson. They've had Wijnaldum, Thiago. You know, these are all world-class players. So there is something else going on. And I we'll come on to it in a minute because I've got a friend of mine who's a Liverpool fan. I'll tell you guys what he made of it. But Liverpool only had 1 shot on target in this entire game, which is the first time that has happened in 4 years at home. But I guess it's important to say that Brighton made that stat possible. You know, it's not all down to Liverpool being poor. Brighton themselves were very, very good. And even the shot that they did have was a long-range effort from Oxlade-Chamberlain that sort of limped through to the goalkeeper. So that's 348 minutes now of home football without a goal for Liverpool, which is a problem. So, so just touching on a friend of mine. So he sort of said that, you know, Liverpool have obviously had huge amounts of success over the last few years. And he said that Liverpool, to me, just look mentally, physically, just quite tired. A dip in form was inevitable. I have to say, I think I agree. I think this is, you know, they've been so consistent and so amazing over these last 3 years that they've almost been a victim of their own success. They've only lost 4 games this year. You know, it's not like they're in a crisis. I just think maybe they're victims of their own incredible success.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, isn't it? I think especially the way that they played last season, they were absolute titans. So I think everybody pretty much expected exactly the same this season for them to almost run away with it and maybe City hot on their heels. But it's, I mean, they're still obviously a great team, but the spotlight's on them a lot more this season.
Yeah, and obviously, you know, we are in a very different season with the fans not being around and stuff. So it's, you know, it's not unfair to say that Liverpool would perhaps be a little better if they had a full crowd there singing "You'll Never Walk Alone" and they've got the cop behind them. I think that will play a part as well. A friend of mine, another friend of mine who's a Manchester United fan, actually, he also said that he thinks it's still too dangerous to write Liverpool off just yet. And he thinks that they're still in the game. Do you guys think that, or are you seeing too many signs from Liverpool at the moment that they're perhaps just not quite up to that challenge this year, and maybe a bit of reorganisation and maybe another recruit or two in the summer and then have a real go at again next year?
No, I felt like he'd be an idiot to write them off. Like, look at this league. Like, loads of people were writing City off at the start of the season, and now they're like ahead of everyone. I genuinely believe you'd be an idiot to write them off.
I think you'd be an idiot to write anybody in the top 8 off, to be honest.
Yeah, look at West Ham. They could win it.
Wow. I mean, I didn't want to say it, but since you've touched on it.
You're welcome, Chris.
Leicester.
Yeah, Leicester there. I mean, yes, I do think you're right. I mean, I was just posting that question there to start a conversation rather than suggesting that that's my belief as well. I also think that Liverpool, if they suddenly go on a run of 5-6 games, and they win all 5 or 6 of them, even if they're not that convincing in these wins, all of a sudden, the narrative completely changes. So, and as you say, it has changed so many times this season already. So let's definitely not write them off just yet. One final point on Liverpool. I just wanted to touch on Thiago. Obviously a fantastic player, no doubt about that. On the ball, he's very, very good. But do you think there's a case of sometimes that he's passing the ball a bit too much? I know that sounds stupid to say, but I just wonder if that free-flowing attacking football that we associate with Liverpool is being stunted a little bit with Thiago wanting to just sort of play that possession game a bit too much.
Yeah, it's sort of slowing down the build-up there.
Yeah, I don't know whether I'm being unfair. I watched him obviously against West Ham last weekend, and the 3-1 result was. I don't know if it was flattering or not. West Ham certainly didn't deserve to win. Liverpool definitely deserved to win the game, but it took 3 moments of absolute quality from Liverpool to get the win. And when Thiago was getting the ball, I mean, he played 1 or 2 nice passes, but there was a lot of sideways and backwards passes from him. And I just felt like, Liverpool are not the side to just keep possession for the sake of it. They're much more attack focused than that. And I don't know. I don't know if that's a Klopp thing or whether that's Thiago instigating that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they've not really had a player like him for a while, have they? I mean, last season they had like sort of Jordan Henderson sat in the middle, and he's not got quite the passing range that Thiago has. And I guess they are very A to B in terms of turning the defence into attack. So, yeah, I don't really know. I don't know if he's improved the side or not. It's hard to tell because obviously they have had these injuries and they are a slightly different team to last season. So I don't think you can say that he's had a negative impact on the team. But
yeah, no, it was just, I saw some comments flying around, and then when I thought back to the West Ham game, I thought, oh, maybe, is there something there or not? So, but yeah, I guess maybe we'll keep an eye on him and see how Liverpool fare with him in the side in the coming weeks. Let's talk Brighton just very, very quickly. I mean, what a result this is in their fight against the drop. This was obviously a very unexpected win, a little bit like Burnley coming to Anfield as well. And this is huge for them.
Yeah, and especially on the back of having beaten Tottenham as well. It's not just like a smash and grab or a one-hit wonder. They've done it twice in a row now, so I've got to say fair play to them.
Yep, 6 points from 2 games that you wouldn't have really expected them to get anything from. And this result, I mean, we've had an up tilt in form from Burnley recently. Newcastle are just showing a little bit of fight in them. They got a good win against Everton recently, and they ran Palace very close, who themselves needed to win when Palace beat Newcastle 2-1 this week. And what this all is very bad news for West Brom, Fulham and Sheffield United.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, I think Brighton are too good to go down to the Championship. I think they've got more quality than the other 3 teams. I really do think those bottom 3 teams are doomed, to be honest.
Yeah. And, as you say, this wasn't a fluky result. This is very hard earned by Brighton. And I do watch Brighton sometimes, and the way Graham Potter has got them playing, and sometimes I think that is this side just one kind of proper goal scorer away from being a much more established sort of mid-table team?
Yeah, I think so, because at the moment, a lot of their goal scoring is all down to Neil Maupay.
Yeah.
I'm probably wrong. But I mean, the Trossard's a good player. But other than that, I mean, going forward, I can't really think of too many. I'd say one of their biggest attacking threats is Lamptey, and he's a right back. So, yeah,
I mean, Connolly's had periods where he's been good in games. He sort of burst onto the scene a little bit last year, but excuse me, hasn't done huge amounts this season. But I just really appreciate the way they play. I mean, they're confident on the ball. They play it around on the deck. they don't really seem to compromise on that style, even when they were in much sort of deeper relegation trouble than they are right now. And I think that's massively commendable, because it would have been very easy to just sort of, not necessarily panic, that's the wrong word, but, go much more direct in the hope to snatch results. And they don't. They stick to their ethos, they stick to their game plan, and it's slowly beginning to pay dividends for them.
Yeah. And who's their goalkeeper? Is it like Fernandez or something?
Let's have a quick look.
If it's Fernandez, then I've got the right. If not, then just completely ignore me.
It is Robert Sanchez.
Sanchez, yeah, I'm right. Yeah, I've watched him last couple of games. He's actually looks really good. It's like a very good goalkeeper.
Yeah, I think that they've got great players to play the way they're playing, and Graham Potter needs a huge amount of credit for that. Defensively, they've always been pretty difficult to break down. You very rarely see Brighton ever get smashed 3-4, 5-0. But it's just at the other end. They've had games earlier on in the season where they played so well, but they just don't. I mean, a little bit like against West Ham, they did the same thing. They kept the ball really well, and they created one or two openings. And then as it got into that final third, it just all broke down. So I think there is a lot of reason to be sort of semi-optimistic, cautiously optimistic, perhaps, for Brighton, because of the fact they are down in the bottom reaches of the table. But yeah, if they can stumble across a goal scorer, whether it's bringing in someone from their youth academy, bringing another player. Obviously, they've just signed Moises Caicedo, who is a midfielder, but he might be able to push them forward and get some goals from midfield. Yeah, I think they could end up as a mid-table side this year. I mean, they're looking at the table now, they are only 7 points away from 10th place now, which is Arsenal. So it's looking positive for them right now.
I feel like Josh King could have been a good signing for them.
And he would have been available pretty cheap as well. So, I mean, Brighton, historically not huge spenders, but yeah, Josh King should have been within their budget, you would think.
Yeah. I mean, how much did he go to Everton for, do you know? Because I've not actually seen a price.
It says undisclosed.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah, not sure. Obviously, Danny Welbeck is at Brighton. He has the potential to score goals in there, but you're never quite sure from an injury point of view whether he's going to be with you, for extended periods of games in a season.
He's not necessarily old. He's like a Jack Wilshere. He's the striker version of Jack Wilshere.
Right. On that note, let's take a quick break then. After the break, we're going to talk some more Premier League stuff. We're going to go through Pete's comment on Facebook about Southampton, which I'm sure everyone is waiting for. And then we will have our final quiz round, and we'll see who comes out on top in this historic battle on Football with Fran. See you in a minute. Hey everybody, and welcome back to the show. So as always, let's dive into our listener segment. So for the first time, as we heard earlier, we did have a couple of Twitter comments, but as per usual, main man Pete, let us know what he thought on Facebook. So Fran, what's Pete been saying this week?
Let me just find it. 1 second.
Preparation at its finest. Love it.
Preparation is key.
Are we sure Ralph Hasenhüttl isn't Australian? His favourite show seems to be Home and Away.
That's such a bad joke.
I could talk all evening about how much of a dusted joke the club Southampton are, but let's get into the juice. Chris, we're going to struggle to get many points out of our first 8 games, quote marks. I just don't see how Lingard fits in the team, quote marks. It's going
Yeah.
Yeah. West Ham had another dominant performance against a great Aston Villa side. Lingard was so confident in the centre. He took Grealish for a walk without a lead. Thoughts?
Well, I mean, I will. At first, I will say that my tactic of talking shit about West Ham is working perfectly, because I did say at the start of the season that I didn't see us getting many points in the first 8 games, and I also said that I didn't see how Jesse Lingard was going to fit in the team. And so obviously here we are, fifth position in the league after 22 games with 38 points, which I think is almost 1 point fewer than we got in the entirety of last season. So, yes, very much prepared and very happy to eat my words, I should add as well.
Good. Man United should be named Cavani FC. What a signing he's turning out to be, albeit playing a washed-up Liverpool B team.
He couldn't help but have another little dig, could he?
Yeah. I mean, Cavani's been great since we've. I mean, I was very sort of apprehensive about the signing, but he has been great for us. If anything, I think we would be called Luke Shaw FC this season.
Yeah, he's having a cracking season. You know, the one thing I like about Cavani is, not the fact that he is finding the back of the net. And I think he's 6 goals. I think he's got a few now. But I saw a clip earlier on today, actually, of how he talks with the rest of the team. He's acting almost like a coach on the pitch. And he was really sort of getting deep into sort of tactical stuff with Rashford and sort of like saying to him, you could see with his hand gestures, he was telling him about runs and bits and pieces. And I feel like that is as much of a benefit to Manchester United as his goal scoring is.
Yeah, I mean, against Liverpool in the FA Cup, it was Bruno Fernandes' free kick. It was Cavani that told him to go the goalkeeper's side rather than go over the wall.
Yeah, it's. I think he has turned out to be, a very positive signing. I think everybody was slightly apprehensive about Cavani coming in. He's not getting any younger. It did have that feel that it was a bit of a panic buy, but in fairness, it's working out. He's working really hard. He's creating chances. He's scoring goals. So yeah, I think it's a signing that's worked out rather than one that's flopped for definite.
Yeah, 100%.
Chelsea look much improved under TT's possession game. Just need to focus on hitting the barn, let alone the barn door against Spurs, who are in a slump after they won the league in November. Maybe another 9-0 incoming.
Yeah, I mean, we were discussing during the break how, Chelsea are actually currently 1-0 up against Spurs at the moment, thanks to a penalty from Jorginho. Both teams obviously have had massive stutters in their season. Spurs seem to be very firmly still stuck in theirs. I don't know. I think that for me, the jury is still very much out on Tuchel at Chelsea. There have been definite signs of improvement, don't get me wrong. But I think that, we've seen new manager bounces in a lot of teams. So, let's not get too carried away just yet. Let's see how he performs over the next dozen games. If they continue to play well and win games and improve and climb back up the league, then absolutely we can say it's a success. But I think right now, bearing in mind, if you look at the teams that the teams that they've played, since he came in, they've played Wolves and drawn 0-0 and they've played Burnley. So let's not get too carried away just yet.
Yeah, I think tonight's game will be more of an indicator of what sort of direction Tuchel's going to be taking Chelsea in.
Yeah, it's a shame actually that what happened on Monday happened, because actually it's a game that I would have quite liked to have watched. Spurs need to get a win to get back to winning ways, and obviously there was still that, as we say, that question about how Tuchel's getting on at Chelsea and what's changed. So it is a shame that I won't be able to see it, but I will watch the highlights with a lot of interest.
Mm.
And then just some stuff about Portsmouth, really.
Yeah, thanks for that, Pete, who continues to be a massive advocate and how do I put this, marketing department for us with sharing everything around. So it's hugely appreciated, Pete, and we will get you on the show at some point in the not too distant future. So let's get back into some Premier League chat then. Let's talk Aston Villa against West Ham. So fifth place, we've now won 6 of the last 7 in all competitions, with the only defeat coming from Liverpool. Form-wise, we're the second best team in the league. We've got Lingardinho in the squad now playing well. Things are looking pretty rosy right now for West Ham, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have thought that West Ham would be up where they are, and I think you can start sort of looking at it now. It's not as if you're 5 games in or 10 games in. We're over halfway through the season now, so if the teams sort of keep it as they are going now, then I think West Ham will be very happy. Yeah,
and I think that you're absolutely right. If after the first 8 games, and I appreciate what I said, I think that as you say, everyone can have those early runs where things are looking really good. You look at Southampton, how well they started the season, and they're now in 12th place, having lost 4 of their last 5 games. So it can quite easily peter away. Leeds are the same. They've been quite up and down recently. So for us to have maintained that good run of form, and if anything, we've got better, it's a real testament to the squad and to what David Moyes is doing. One player who continues to impress is Thomas Soucek. His figures per goals minutes his stats are incredible. He's got a goal every 247 minutes in the Premier League, which is better than Son, who has a goal every 285, Grealish 299, and Aubameyang at 309. So bearing in mind he's new to the Premier League, he's only been here a year. He's playing in a West Ham team that's not been scoring that many goals this year. We've not been shy away from the goal, but we've not been scoring that many goals. But his all-round play, he's been very impressive this year.
Yeah, I mean, he came straight from the Czech Republican League, didn't he? I think he was on loan last season or whatever it was, but it's not as if he's come from like a La Liga team or something like that.
Yeah, he was Slavia Prague, I believe, the team he came from, as did fellow teammate Vladimir Soufal, who also did one hell of a job on Grealish last night as well. I mean, he kept Grealish very, very quiet.
Yeah. I mean, both 2 great gems there. So you've got whoever scattered those 2 has done a very good job.
Yeah, I'm just wondering whether there's any other players we can steal from them, because clearly they're becoming if we can turn them into some kind of feeder club, that'd be amazing.
You'd be like,
sorry, but no.
Republic.
Yeah, Wolves with the entire country of Portugal, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there were no passengers in that game last night for West Ham. I mean, I felt like we dominated the game and very rightly got the win, which we deserved. Dean Smith even said afterwards that, the right team won the game. Antonio played well, even though he didn't score again. Fredericks came in and did a really good job. I feel like he was brought in to double up on Grealish, but also offer a bit of pace down the flank as well. And as you say, the longer this season goes on, West Ham have played 22 games now. As mentioned, we're 1 point away from our entire tally from last season. At what point do the expectations shift from just a nice, steady mid-table finish to actually we should be aiming for Europa League now?
Yeah, I do think. I mean, last season I thought West Ham would be aiming for top 10, but obviously they started very poorly and it didn't end that way. But I think the way that they're playing at the moment, I think sort of 7th place is definitely what they should be aiming for. But there's just so much competition this season; it's going to be very difficult.
Yeah, it is. I mean, you still look around the teams. You got Everton and Spurs have got a couple of games in hand. Chelsea have got a game in hand. Aston Villa have got a couple of games in hand, although their form has been pretty hit and miss recently. So it would be quite nice from my point of view as a West Ham fan for everybody to get onto the same number of played games so that you get a feel for actually how the table is right now. Because if all of those teams behind us won their games in hand, then potentially we're 6th or 7th or maybe even 8th, depending on results, rather than 5th. So, but yeah, long way to continue. We've got games against Fulham next and then Sheffield United in the league. So, a real opportunity to get 6 more points there and keep that push going for Europe. The only thing that's kind of lingering in my mind and a lot of West Ham fans is not signing a striker in January. Do you think that could potentially come back and bite West Ham?
I think so, because I think when Antonio is playing, he's a very good player, and you can see the difference he makes in that team. But players get injuries, and especially this season, there's going to be a lot of injuries. And
You've got Jay Lings now.
Yeah, he's not a striker though. He had a great game, and I don't know if you saw what Danny Murphy said about Lingard.
I didn't know. I never quite got that far in match of the day.
Okay, he said it'll be good for him being a big fish in a little pond.
Little prick. Oh, right, I'm not watching that now. But anyway, on the topic of Jesse Lingard, he obviously is the one that's going to grab all the headlines or did grab the headlines in today's papers. Were you just as surprised as everybody else at how well he performed?
I was surprised that he started, to be honest. I really didn't think he'd go straight into the starting lineup, especially as he's not played. I mean, I think he's played 2 games for United this season, and neither of them were starts, I don't think. So I was surprised at that. And
sorry, go on, carry on.
And even more surprised that he sort of hit the ground running and scored 2 goals. But I'm happy for him. I don't wish any ill on him. But I do hope that he can pick up his career again, because I do think that on his day he's a very good player.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, like you, I was very surprised to see him jump straight into that starting lineup. I think it was quite opportunistic from Moyes because Bowen and Fornals are two players that work incredibly hard, as do a lot of the players in the West Ham team, but those two perhaps more so than others because of the roles in which they play in the team. So I think it was tactically quite a good call from Moyes, as it turned out to be, to give those two players a bit of a rest. Fredericks did really well on the right, and obviously Lingard and Benrahma, sort of like they floated on that left-hand side. It didn't seem like one of them was a set-out left winger. They were sort of like swapping positions between there and Cam. And I thought Lingard from moment one, he was brilliant. He was positive. He gave us that little bit of extra quality in that number 10 role that he kept picking up. Every time he got the ball, he was on the turn trying to go at the defence. And if he continues playing like that, then this is going to turn into quite the signing for West Ham, I think.
So when we spoke last night, you said that you thought that he was playing Lingard because he wanted to rest like Fornals and Bowen for the weekend. So do you think, does he play those two now, or does he stick with Lingard?
I think he has to play Lingard. You're right. I did think when I looked at that starting lineup, and I thought to myself, this is a good opportunity to rest those other two players. He's probably looking at this game tonight thinking this is going to be tough. Villa are a good side. Let's see how things go. We can bring them off the bench if we need, but let's make sure we don't get beat. If we nick a point, we can move on and then try target wins against Fulham and Sheffield United. But the way things are played, and even Fredericks to a certain degree, because I thought he was very good last night as well. They've both given David Moyes a real headache ahead of this weekend. So it's his starting lineup is going to be quite interesting. I suspect he'll start Lingard, but I suspect Fredericks will probably step out for Bowen, would be my guess. So we'll
sorry, I don't think he wants to start causing unrest by leaving out players that have been very reliable this season for sort of players that have just come in.
No, I don't think so. But it does appear to me that there is a really good camaraderie in the group, and I think everyone is buying into this this way of playing with Moyes and this sort of like brand of football. I mean, even players like Lanzini and Yarmolenko, Yarmolenko is an established international footballer of good talent. Lanzini, all right, he hasn't been at his best for the last sort of 18 months since he had his bad knee injury, but these are two players that in other teams would command a starting place. And they're barely getting on the pitch. And yet I'm not hearing a single murmur coming out of the camp of unrest and people getting upset that they're not playing. So it's a very happy place to be. Long may it continue. But the one question I just wanted to touch on, I can't remember if I asked you this last week or whether I asked you this on Monday when the signing, after the signing had happened. Solskjaer has very clearly stated that this is a loan and a loan only. There is no option to buy in this contract, in this loan deal, should I say. Solskjaer has indicated that he wants Jesse Lingard to go here. He wants him to enjoy his football. He wants him to sort of rekindle his career and get his passion back. If that does happen, let's just say for hypothetically here that Lingard spends the rest of the season performing really, really well for West Ham. Do you see a situation that even if that happens, that he gets back in that United side next season?
Well, I saw some interesting rumours this morning that United might want to do a swap deal for Declan Rice. So I'd be quite interested in that.
Well, I mean, that would very much test the wherewithal with West Ham, but even if Lingard has an outstanding season, I can't see them getting rid of Rice. There would be riots amongst the West Ham fans if they did that.
Yeah, and going back to your question, to be honest, he plays as a cam, and we've got Bruno Fernandes. And would I ever consider swapping Bruno for Lingard? No, I wouldn't.
No. And I don't think anybody would, frankly. As good as Lingard may or may not be for the rest of the season, the job Fernandes is doing for United right now in terms of his goals, his assists, his all-round play. I mean, you would need rocks in your head to drop Fernandes for Lingard, I think.
I mean, if Lingard was sort of, 19, 20, 21, then I'd consider it. But the fact that he's 28, he's getting towards the end of his prime. So I think his time at United is done, to be honest.
Yeah, I wonder whether it was more the way in which Solskjaer said it. I suspect it was more a way of trying to entice Lingard to do well, but also potentially to bring his value up.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you don't sort of send a player out on loan and say, yeah, there's no chance that he'll ever play for United again. Because he even said about Phil Jones that, you know, he wants to get him fit and he wants to get him playing again, but I can't see Phil Jones ever stepping into the United team again.
It would be very out of character for Solskjaer to sort of say those sorts of things as well. You know, he is this nice guy. He very, very rarely ever throws his players under the bus. So I think it's just Solskjaer being nice, frankly. So, right, just very quickly on Villa, not a great deal to say about Villa as things stand. They certainly weren't at the races on this occasion. That could be down to West Ham playing very, very well. But there were still some positives here that I saw. I mean, Ollie Watkins looked lively all night and took his goal really well. Do you think that Villa, where is their realistic aim? Seeing how they've been performing recently, do you think that Europa League is probably just a step too far for them?
I think so. I think for this season, I mean, to be honest, if I'm a Villa fan, I'd be happy with finishing mid-table, because after the season they had last season, obviously they'd just come up and they just about escaped relegation. I'd be more than happy of escaping relegation comfortably and finishing mid-table. And then next season, with the players they have, they build upon it and try and sort of fight for that top 10 place, maybe knocking on the door of Europa League. But I think, you know, if they got into the Europa League this season, they'd be in trouble with the amount of games they'd be playing next season with the squad they have.
Yeah, they would definitely need some investment there. And then talking of next season, obviously, you know, you talk there about them wanting to push on and potentially aim for knocking on the door of the Europa League next season. Do you think that Grealish is likely to still be an Aston Villa player next season?
I think it depends on the teams that are interested in him. I mean, I'd love to have him at United, but you know, the fee that Aston Villa are asking for, they're asking for 80 million. I just don't know how many teams have the money to spend 80 million on one player at the moment.
How much did you spend on Harry Maguire?
I know, but that wasn't during COVID.
No, I get that, but...
Yeah, but I mean, during COVID times, I don't think teams are going to be looking at spending 80 million on one player. I think they're going to be trying to find a few more hidden gems. Because I mean,
depends how desperate they are.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we refused to buy Sancho in the summer, so I can't see. Maybe, you know, a team like Chelsea or something like that, or City. But I just don't know whether they would need Grealish with the players they've got. So I would like to see him at a bigger club. I think it would be good for his career and for his England career, but I just don't know how many teams could afford him.
Yeah, I mean, he signed a new deal not long ago, I believe, with Grealish. So I think that contractually he's tied to Villa for a number of years yet. And he openly loves Aston Villa. He's obviously a big fish there. He's team captain. He's playing probably the best football of his career. But yeah, I think you're right. I think in the current state of affairs with the world football and financial situation that's going on, I think there are going to be very few clubs who are going to want to pay 80, 90 million for Jack Grealish, which is that's what it's going to cost them, because he is a player with a lot of talent and a big future. So yeah, if United are not prepared to pay that money for Sancho, I highly doubt they're going to pay it for Grealish.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's good news for Villa fans, because it means that he is more than likely to stay. And hopefully it's for the same reason. That will be why Declan Rice stays as well, with a bit of luck. So we'll see how that happens in the summer. Last game we're going to talk about then from the Premier League is Wolves against Arsenal, and another game with 2 red cards in it. Let's start with David Luiz's red card. And it's important to say here that unlike Bednarek's one for Southampton, David Luiz's one has been upheld, so he will still continue to serve the suspension that's tied to this red card. I mean, I'll be honest, when I saw the red card for him, when I looked at the score and I saw that Luiz had been sent off, I mean, I think most people, if they saw that, would have just assumed it was some kind of ridiculous David Luiz challenge or, handball or something stupid like that. But I have to say, in a very similar way to Bednarek's one, I'm very much on the fence with this one. I cannot see how you can realistically send someone off for something as accidental as this.
For me, Bednarek's one is worse than David Luiz's one, because Bednarek has gone for it and then pulled out at the last second, whereas David Luiz is literally just running behind I think it's that William Jose, and as William Jose's leg comes up, it clips David Luiz's knee. I mean, David Luiz knows as much about it as William Jose does. So how they've decided that one is staying as a red card and Bednarek's has been ruled out is beyond me.
Yeah, I just can't fathom it. I don't think it's not a penalty because it's one of those ones where if that happens out on the pitch, a free kick is given for it all the time. So by that logic, it has to be a penalty. I think you can get into that conversation where people will say, sometimes you see a lot of argy-bargy in the box, and often those things aren't given as fouls, but they are if it's on the halfway line because it's an easier decision for the referee to give because there's less implication. But with this, again, as you say, I just can't see how they've looked at that when David Luiz is not in any way, shape or form interested in making a tackle. He's simply just trying to run back and chase. How they decide that's a red card, I just don't get it at all.
I think it's 100% a penalty, but I think that's where you draw the line. It's a penalty. I mean, if they'd given him a yellow card, I'd have been like, well, that's a little bit harsh, but I can sort of maybe understand. But for it to be a red card, I think that's unforgivable, to be honest.
Yeah, and it goes back to the conversation we had earlier about the intent to tackle somebody. We should, in my opinion, we should treat it in the same way we would treat anything else on the pitch. So, for example, the challenge from the 19-year-old for Southampton, I can't remember what his name is now. I'm just scrolling back up through my notes to find it. Yankovic, that was his name. His challenge was a red card all day long. Those sorts of challenges, absolutely red cards wherever they happen on the pitch. But if that happens, if David Luiz's challenge or even Bednarek's challenge happens anywhere else on the pitch, it's not even a yellow, it's a foul, nothing else. So why is it so different in the box when it's a penalty? It just doesn't make sense to me.
I don't know if it's the referee's understanding of if it is literally just the referee following the letters of the law.
Yeah, you could be right. It could be just the way the rules are written. And hopefully that, we've seen so many examples of not just this situation, but also the way the offside is dealt with VAR and, a few other bits and pieces here and there. I feel like football, we need to evolve with the technology, and I feel like we're not. And I've just got this horrible feeling that, a raft of rule changes are going to come in the summer because they do all the time, especially at the moment with VAR where they're desperately trying to make things right. I've just got this horrible feeling that it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I'd honestly be over the moon if they scrapped VAR. I really like the goal line technology. I think that was very much needed, and that's proven a success. But VAR I think people talk about VAR more than they talk about football nowadays, and it's just beyond a joke, and it's laughable, and I'm just bored of it.
Yeah, I don't think it's unsalvageable here. I think VAR still does have a place, but I think that it should only be used in very specific circumstances. So, for example, with offside, I still think it should be used for offside, but only that there needs to be a greater level of clarity between what is classed as an offside and what isn't, because the current ruling with the lines that they draw where someone's armpit hair is offside and they call it offside and cancel a goal. That's ridiculous. There needs to be, if you say there is clear daylight between the two, or if 50% of their body is front, or whatever it needs to be, there is an easier way of doing that, in my opinion, and the technology is there to make it happen. So I don't think that's too far-fetched to assume that they can fix that. I think it should be used for things like mistaken identity. So like if the referee books or sends off the wrong player and VAR spots it, I think it can be used quite easily there. And maybe, we've seen some good examples of VAR being used for upgrading or downgrading yellows to reds or reds to yellows. But again, it's just that stop overcomplicating it with stupid rules and, trying to tweak it within an inch of its life. Just make it simple, make the rules really easy. And I think that will make a big difference. Yes, there's still going to be contentious decisions with VAR, but then there's going to be contentious decisions if we take VAR away and go back to how it was. But what we need to get away from is these ridiculous decisions that we've seen way too often.
I think for me, when it was a human error, if a goal was offside but it wasn't given as offside and there was no way of checking it, and then the goal stood, you could go back at the end of the game and they analyse it and they say, that should have been given. And it's a talking point, but in some way it's forgivable because it's human error and people make mistakes. I think when there's a machine looking at it and the computer still gets it wrong, or the people looking at the computer that have got 5 minutes to look at it and they still get it wrong, and then it's a talking point, that's when it's unforgivable, because the whole point of your job of you having all these lines and slowing it down is to get it correct, and you're still getting things wrong.
Indeed, yeah. It is. It's very frustrating. But anyway, let's get back to the Wolves Arsenal part of this discussion. So yeah, we've covered the David Luiz red. Arsenal obviously they have appealed and it's been turned away. But the one decision that is highly unlikely to have any complaints from Arsenal is the decision to send Bernd Leno off. I mean, this one was really one of those ones for those Christmas blooper reels, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty comical.
I just don't understand what he was doing. I mean, in the end, it was, as you say, it's a comical red card, but the way he's come out and flown out, he's misjudged the ball so badly, and he's coming out at a fair rate of knots as well.
And for him to think that there's a chance he could get away with it when there's like God knows how many cameras all around the stadium being analysed for VAR nowadays. I mean, he literally could have just, I don't know, maybe
done anything but
pretty much done anything but. I mean, just, throw your head at it or throw your chest at it. I'm not sure why
leave it.
Or don't come out of your box. I'm not sure why he's decided to punch it as he's flying through the air, but there you go. It's one of those things.
Yeah, as you say, it's going to be one of those ones on the Christmas blooper reels. I mean, Arsenal though, they have been very much improved over the last month or so. You would say they've had some better results, much better performances, both individually and as a team as well. Where do you kind of see this Arsenal team in the kind of the pecking order of the Premier League right now? I mean, is Europa League a minimum requirement for them because of the way the league is right now? I mean, even so, that's not going to be an easy target for them.
No, I mean, I was going to say, to be honest, I can see them struggling to get into the Europa League this season. Like I keep saying, there's so much competition, and looking at the teams in form at the moment, I would say Arsenal were probably at the back of the pecking order in terms of Europa League qualification.
How damaging would it be for Arsenal if they don't get Europa League, do you think?
Very. It's going to be very hard to attract players with no European football, and especially, I mean, they're not the richest team in the world anyway, so I can't see them having the finances to attract big players if they don't get European qualification. And especially, it'd be sponsors as well, because they've not been in the Champions League for quite a few seasons now, and that takes a massive hit on your sponsorships, because their deals would have said, like, after such and such years of not qualifying for the Champions League, they get reduced money, etc. So it'd be a big hit for Arsenal if they don't even qualify for the Europa League.
Yeah, and there's obviously a lot of TV money involved in that as well. So, yeah, it will be very tricky for them, because it's potentially a downward spiral from there as well. Aubameyang has obviously just signed a new contract. It's obviously getting Ozil away from the club is a big bonus, because that does free up some money that was being unnecessarily taken up by Ozil in the reserves. So yeah, it's going to be tricky for Arsenal, but Wolves have been equally out of sorts at times this year. This was a very important 3 points to them, because they were just beginning to fall into that, near relegation threatened. And I don't think they were ever that near, let's clarify that, but they were getting in the realms of Newcastle Crystal Palace territory. So this is a big 3 points for them, but they are still quite some way adrift off the Europa League places, aren't they?
Yeah, I think we've almost come to sort of accustom Wolves with being one of those Europa League teams, haven't we? So it's quite strange to see them struggling this season, but I do think
Are they struggling though, or is it just because a lot of other teams have picked up their game?
A bit of both. I think they're missing their main striker, which quite a few teams have struggled with this season as well. I think that's been one of the biggest hits, but yeah, it could be also the fact that there's a lot more competition this season than there has been in previous seasons.
Yeah, I mean, Raul Jimenez for Wolves is a bit like Antonio for West Ham. Means that you take him out of the team, and it's a very big hole to fill. And Wolves and West Ham, frankly, don't have the depth in quality up front to fill that. So you then have to rely on your midfielders to pick up the pieces. But they have obviously brought in Willian Jose, as we mentioned earlier. You touched on him as the player that was brought down for the foul by David Luiz. brought him in from Real Sociedad, which does address the striker issue. We still got no idea when Raul Jimenez is back. I mean, I knew that it was a bad head injury, but I didn't realize it was quite as bad as this. I mean, Nuno has actually said this week that he is still hopeful that he will play before the end of the season. And bearing in mind he was injured in November, and end of the season I think is targeted for the back end of May. That's a very long time. I mean, there are people who recover from ACLs in the same sort of time frame.
Yeah, but I mean, he cracked his skull, doesn't he? So I could see why they wouldn't want to rush him back from something like that, because that is.
Oh, yeah.
Life-threatening injury, let alone a career-ending injury.
Yeah, I guess it's one of because it's so rare to see such a serious head injury in football like that you just kind of presume that maybe, a few stitches, bit of a concussion, and he'll be back in a month or something. But clearly this was a very, very serious injury. And as you say, definitely not one to even remotely try and rush back from. But actually the pick of the bunch in this game was veteran midfielder Moutinho. I mean, what a goal that was.
Yeah, hell of a goal.
I mean, with Moutinho in the side, do you think that I don't really know how to put this. Should he be playing a little bit further up, do you think? I mean, he's historically, I think I'm right in saying he used to be a bit more of an attacking midfielder, but he seems to be playing a bit of a deeper role for Wolves. Do you think that they would do better to push him a bit further up the pitch?
Yeah, I think he's sat a bit deeper due to his age. I mean, he's like 33, 34 now, I believe. So maybe he hasn't got the pace to be getting around up there like he used to. I think he's been a bit of a bit part player as well. I don't think he's been starting every game this season, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, perhaps so. I mean, obviously still got people like Ruben Neves in the side as well. Do we think that Wolves do we think there's more to it with this underperforming season that they're having right now? I mean, they've had 1 or 2 seasons now in the Premier League. Sorry, this is their 3rd season in the Premier League, I believe. And for the last 2 seasons, they've been very strong. They've had very, very good seasons where I think they've pushed into Europe and got actually quite deep in the Europa League last season. They lost 3 players effectively this season, if you include the injury to Raul Jimenez, when they lost Doherty to Spurs, and they've also obviously lost Jota to Liverpool. I mean, it's hard to get a read on them because I've watched a few of their games, and I remember the Chelsea game they played really well, and Neto and Podence were very good. So, like, what's missing from this Wolves team? Is it literally just the Raul Jimenez link that's missing?
I don't know. I don't know if it is just one thing. I would say that was a major factor of it. I think that's probably had quite a big impact on the squad. But I do also think it is a case of everybody else has got a lot stronger and is playing very well this season. I don't think it's the fact that Wolves are particularly playing really badly. I think everybody else is just playing really well.
Yeah. We'll see. I mean, obviously, there's still a long way to go, and we keep saying stop trying to predict the season and whatnot. So let's see how things go towards the end of the season. Right, let's. Obviously, we're not going to do Team of the Week. I've just been sent something on my phone, and I'm going to read it out. Mr. Lee Cole, for once, has actually sent me something that I can actually talk about on the podcast. Because usually he sends me jokes that are way too close to the mark to talk about on a chat show. Apparently, there is a footballer in Brazil that has been banned for 8 games for windmilling his penis during a celebration. I've not clicked on the link here just in case this is like a piss take and I'm going to get like some kind of random image up in front of me, because that wouldn't be the first time that Lee's done that to me. But yeah, if you're interested, then just search windmilling penis in Google. I'm sure you'll get great results. Right. Let's get into this then as we close the show out. Down the stat, man.
So Bruno Fernandes now has 15 assists in 36 Premier League games. Only 2 players have got to 15 assists in fewer games. Who are they?
David Silva.
Nope.
Go on, give me a clue.
Do you want the 2 teams that they played for?
Yeah, go on then. Let's go with that.
So one was a United player and one was a West Ham player.
West Ham player, okay. Di Canio?
Nope.
Are we talking fairly? I'm surely not fairly recent. It must be a while ago.
One was recent-ish, and the other one was a while ago.
Okay. Which is which?
West Ham was recent-ish.
Okay. Payet?
Yeah.
Okay. And then United, a while ago. I mean, that could be anybody.
Frenchman.
Sorry?
Frenchman.
Cantona?
Yep.
Ah. Well, he's in very esteemed company, Mr. Fernandez, with that stat. Yeah, and long may it continue for Man United fans. I have to say, he's doing a good job in my fantasy league team. I think I've had him as captain now for about the last 4 months.
Yeah, I've had him as captain. I'm scared of having United players because no matter who I put in my team, they usually perform badly.
Right then, now it is time. So it's important to say that Monday we did do this, and I came out victorious. However, we have agreed that the result of that is null and void, and it will come down to tonight's show. So pressure is back on, and Dan gets a second chance. So, right, let's get into it.
Welcome back to Football with Fran for potentially, well, maybe definitely the last time.
Maybe definitely.
Who knows? Who knows?
Are we recording?
Depends if I win or not, Dan.
Well, I was going to say similar to Monday, but obviously no one really heard. No one heard Monday. But it's questions about the current Premier League up to last night's games. So up to like stats from this morning for this Premier League season. So there's 3 players I'm looking for here, and you can get a point for each player you get right. Who has hit the woodwork the most times?
Oh, God.
So there's 3 that are all on the same amount of times. So if you want to like guess 3, then that's fine. But you can have a point for each player.
Okay.
I commend your quiz research questions here, because God knows where you found this question from.
Yeah.
Oh, blimey. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 players, but who knows if they're right or wrong.
Daniel?
Yeah, I've got 3 players.
Right, Chris, go on then.
I'll go Raheem Sterling. I'll go for Sadio Mane.
Yeah.
And I will go for Marcus Rashford.
Dan?
I've gone for De Bruyne, Rashford, and Lacazette.
Well, you're all very wrong.
It's going to be 3 really obscure players, isn't it?
How did you not get Timo Werner?
I thought Timo Werner, but I didn't think he'd played enough games.
Yeah, but think how many times he's played. Timo Werner, Watkins, and Trossard, all on 5.
Oh, okay.
So sticking with this theme, obviously, who has made the most tackles?
I feel like I should know that.
And is this name 3 again, is it?
No, sorry, this is just 1.
Oh, just 1? Oh, wow.
A standout player for this one.
Bloody hell.
No.
Chris, got someone?
I have no idea who it is, but...
I mean, yeah, this is a guess from however many hundreds of players in the Premier League.
Well, guesses were very good on Monday, so go for it.
I'm going to go with... Wilfred Ndidi from Leicester.
Yeah.
I've gone for Wan-Bissaka.
Yeah, smashed it. Well done.
Wan-Bissaka.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, here we fucking go.
I was waiting for you to say that.
He's the best tackler in the league.
Who has had the most yellow cards?
Oh god, that's tough.
Yeah. I mean, it's not for me because I got the answer.
Wow, yeah.
You got someone?
Yeah, I don't think it's right, but I'll.
Chris?
Yeah.
I'll go with Fernandinho.
Dan?
I've gone for David Luiz.
Hector Bellerin.
Oh, I'd never have got that.
Nor would I.
That's interesting. How many, out of curiosity?
7. Who has played the most minutes so far? And there's only one answer to this.
I genuinely think I might know who this is.
I think it's one of 2 players.
Ooh.
And this is Premier League only, right? So
Yeah.
we're not counting. Yeah.
One hasn't written.
Right, I've written it, but it's one of 2, and I've probably picked the wrong one.
Okay, go on, Chris.
I'm going with Declan Rice.
Oh, okay.
Who have you got?
Well, I thought it was Rashford, but I've put Maguire.
Aaron Cresswell.
Oh.
You're in the right team.
Yeah, so Declan Rice must at some point have been substituted or something, or maybe didn't play a game or something. Because I thought he had played every minute of our season this year. Maybe not. Maybe not.
I mean, feel free to question the Premier League website.
How many was it? 2 questions left?
There's one question.
1 question left.
Oh, fuck's sake. Oh, come on then.
Chris is getting Annabelle on Google.
Who has scored the second most goals in the league? Now there's 4 people here that are all tied, so you get a point for each person. So Chris, you could easily bring it back. Yeah, there's 4 people.
Okay.
A second.
So we're guessing 4.
Yeah, guess 4. Four people, all on second place. How many have you got?
I've got 3 at the moment.
Right.
Yeah, I've got 3 as well. I suspect you've probably got the same 3 that I do. It's just a case of the 4th.
Yeah, probably all got the same 3. Yeah.
I guess the 4th.
Just any help? It's someone sneaked in yesterday.
Yeah,
okay.
I think I know that. I know one. Definitely know one of them. I'm pretty sure I know the other 3. I think.
All right, Jesus.
All right, Dan. Jesus Christ, man.
I'll say that with confidence. I'll get it completely wrong.
Chris.
Okay. Well, the three I'm fairly confident on is Harry Kane, Son Heung-min, Jamie Vardy. Those are the 3 I'm fairly confident on. The 4th one, I'll go with Calvert-Lewin.
Right, Dan.
I think Jamie Vardy is top goal scorer. I think Bruno's second. I think Son and Kane are both joint. And I guessed Calvert-Lewin because I have no idea how he's doing now.
Dan, you've won.
Has he done it?
So
What was it?
Jamie Vardy is not actually, he must be third because Mo Salah's top.
Oh, okay. I thought Jamie Vardy was top.
So apologies, Chris. But the 4 are Bruno, Harry Kane, Son, and Calvert-Lewin.
No, I genuinely didn't know Bruno. Obviously, I knew Bruno was having a great season, but I didn't think he was up there.
Yeah, I think he's second on goals and he's second on assists or third on assists.
So that means it's 5-3 and Dan wins. But what can
we do to make Chris win?
What do we want to do? Do we want to have another quiz on Monday just to make it? Because I feel like this is unfair now.
I mean, we could put it to the vote with the
we
listeners if
think
you wanted to.
Yeah, let the listeners decide.
Listeners, right? Do you think there should be another round? Because Chris won it on Monday and was honestly so excited and had, but it didn't make it to air.
Sod's law,
And
innit?
now Dan has won. So do we think there should be like a final quiz, or do you think Dan should just win it? Let me know.
Okay, we'll post something. We'll post some stuff on social media and get everyone's feedback.
But yeah, well done, Dan.
Thank you.
That's really, do you know what? The reason I was so confident on that 3 was because I feel like I saw after the Liverpool game against West Ham at the weekends, I knew that Salah was top goal scorer because I remember seeing the statistic then. And they showed obviously like the top 5, and I could have sworn I saw Vardy, Son, and Kane in that list. So yeah, that's bummed me out.
Oh, I thought Vardy was top. I don't know why.
Oh well.
I guess
never mind.
I don't know. Maybe I've got it wrong.
So anyway, on the topic of redoing the quiz or not, there is of course the real chance here that if the fans turn around and say no, tough shit, it was Chris's fault for the fact that the recording screwed up last week. This is just desserts. There is a chance that we're going to need a forfeit, Fran.
Yeah, just actually to clarify, Jamie Vardy is sat in third on 11 goals with Patrick Bamford. So he's technically like joint sixth if you count all the others, but yeah, he's like joint third.
If you do decide that Chris has lost, then the forfeits can be whatever you like them to be.
I feel like I said exactly the same thing on Monday when I won. I was like, now that it's not me, go nuts. Let's make you do some crazy shit.
Chris, I don't suppose you have that telephone call again, do you?
I don't know what you're talking about, mate. Oh dear. Right. Okay. Well, we leave it in the listeners' very capable hands to decide what the outcome is. If it's decided that Dan has won this quiz, then it will be over to Fran to post out on social media to get some ideas, and also for Fran to decide what I'm going to have to do. Or, of course, there will be one final winner-takes-all round of Football with Fran on Monday's recording. So, without further ado, then, I guess it's time to end. Thank you very much for listening, everybody. Dan, Fran, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we will see everyone next Tuesday. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.